Does melanotan 2 change eye color? This is an interesting question and happy to dive into it because melanotan 2, just for the record, it does not change eye color. However, some of the things that we'll dive into shows how melanotan 2, which has been studied for more than 30 years, what it does to skin pigmentation. Once you change skin pigmentation, just the perception can be that your eye color has changed. Now this is an interesting phenomenon because most of us, our eye color and the iris of your eye is well defined in our early childhood, but there are rare cases where eye color can change. But the evidence does not show melanotan 2 having that capability of changing eye color itself. So in this video, we're going to deconstruct what is melanotan 2, how does it change skin pigmentation? What are the different pathways that it's modulating? How does it work on appetite, sexual function? And not only that, but the skin pigmentation and what it can do to moles and freckles on your face, some of the downside. Now, with the caveat that this is a research molecule. This is something that has been studied for decades, and a lot of people are using it, but this is not medical advice, so make sure you work with a licensed physician. And please do yourself a favor, and when you're utilizing peptides, make sure it's from a prescriber who's using a 503A or 503B compounding pharmacy. Safety above all else. I'm Regan Archibald, founder of Ageless Future, and I want to make sure that you can live as long as you possibly can, and then you can also have your health optimized as you go throughout every single decade of your life. And so we look at testing, diagnostics, my team at Ageless Future. We've got an entire medical provider suite of very compassionate, kind humans who are also very dedicated to your health, but they look at the data first to see if something like melanotan 2 may have more benefits than risks and how to do it appropriately. So let's jump in. So melanotan 2, does it change eye colors? Well, first of all, let's talk about the pathways it works on to change your skin tone, which I think is pretty interesting because when this study was first done, when they looked at this pigmentation of the skin, they wanted to see if they could create a tan-free tan on the body. So how can you avoid some of the dangers of skin cancer and extreme sun exposure, but also help change the melanin receptors in your skin? And so here's what they found. It binds, this is an alpha melanocyte stimulating hormone, and that's what the MT2, it's an analog of this. And there's 5 major categories in this family. And what it does is it's a precursor to a protein that also gives rise to ACTH beta, endorphin, and other stress and survival related peptides. So when MT2 enters the body, it impersonates this alpha melanocyte stimulating hormone, and then it binds to these melanocortin receptors. And this is where the magic happens. It's like turning on the engine to create more melanin and to change the skin tone. Now, when it binds, it activates these G proteins. That increases the intracellular ATPs through the AMPK pathway. But the interesting thing is, as you turn on the engine, now you're getting a little better energy production in the skin. So think of your skin as, it is the largest organ in your body. The organ that has the most volume is your muscle mass, but the skin is also a secondary detox pathway. So a lot of the things that show up on our skin are what will also show up in our intestines, which is where anytime you're going to work on the skin, you want to think, what does my gut biome look like? So once again, melanotan 2, as long as you've got everything cleaned up in your gut, you're taking care of your skin, you're not putting on the fragrances. So one of the first things you can do is, healing is very simple, remove interferences, build up deficiencies. So instead of putting on all these products, these lotions, make sure the first thing is remove any kind of fragrances. That's very fundamental for detoxification. And then once you've done that, if you're not sure where to start, just start with some coconut oil. Very easy, skin loves it. So, okay, so we're on this AMPK pathway. So you're getting better energy production in the skin, better melanin production, and then this turns into this activation You get an upregulation of the tyrosine, and then these enzymes are what are creating this production of melanin, which allows this brown or black pigment instead of some of the red or yellow pigment. And so this is where people, when they use melanotan, and bodybuilders, God bless them, they've used a lot of these peptides for years before we fully understood the mechanism of action. And while I love melanotan too, I'd love to see more studies that go deeper into its mechanism of action, and maybe it could help us with skin cancer, and that's where people have been looking at, is there a better solution? So why does the skin darken without presence of the sun? And as it does darken, what happens is that the shading from the skin can actually give you the perception that your eye color has changed. The other downside of using melanotan 2 is it does cause nausea and yawning. It can suppress your appetite. So if you're already on like a GLP-1, like maybe you're taking Ozempic or Zepbound or some type of tirzepatide, or maybe even retatrutide, you want to be careful that you don't suppress your appetite too much. And so this is where you've got to have this great checks and balance system in your body. But the other thing that happens as you darken the skin is, at least in that first 90 days, you'll see an exaggeration in some of your freckles, some of your moles. Some people have even found that old scars can be more readily observable. And so, as you do this, you want to enter in at your own discretion. What most people have reported is that things start to mellow out after about 3 months. And so the other interesting side effect is libido enhancement. And this is where like PT141, which is now FDA approved for female hypoarousal disorder, it's a phenomenal peptide. Melanotan 2 does seem to have some of that enhancement when it comes to libido. Melanotan 1 does not have the same global or systemic outputs as does melanotan 2. It does seem to tan the skin. It has a lower side effect profile, but not the same kind of energy production for the skin and downregulation of inflammation that melanotan 2 does. One thing that happens with this appetite suppression, you also can get some increased sympathetic tone, and this is where right after the injection you may feel some nausea or flushing. And then you'll also see that there's this fine tuning of signaling, because all peptides are these little protein structures, and they go in and bind on the surface of the cell, and they change the whole expression of your body. That's why melanotan 2 is so exciting, because we see this expression change in people pretty dramatically. So if you're wondering, do peptides work or not? Well, melanotan 2 is one of those that you just can't deny, but it does come with some side effects. And once again, this is where more research is necessary. The other thing that you'll find with melanotan 2 is people have started looking at the melanocyte activity in hair. Now, I know I got a lot of grain. You guys are probably like, you need to use more melanotan 2, Regan. Well, I appreciate that. And so melanotan 2, what they did find is that it can actually help in some of the activities of hair follicle and creating more melanin in the hair. Now, I did a bunch of research, and I've got a podcast I did about 2 years ago, deep dive into gray hair. And there's only one thing scientifically proven to change the hair follicles and to get some color back, and that was going on vacation. So they found after 2 weeks, that's when participants in the study, they had an improvement in their gray far beyond anything else that they tested. So I know GHK copper, thymosin beta-4, you look at BPC 157, melanotan 2, these have potential, but I think you just need to go on vacation. So I keep trying to apply for these studies where they'll just look at my hair color change while I'm on vacation. Have them call me if you know of a study where I can participate in. All right, so back to the original question. Does it change eye color? No, it doesn't. We haven't seen anything in the literature that could prove that. But once again, there's a much larger research that could be done on this beautiful peptide. But it does change skin tone. It does come with risks, and so make sure you're smart about that. For those of you who want to go deeper and find out what you can do to really protect your skin and extend your health span and lifespan, go to agelessfuture.com. And my team, you go through an intro call. They'll help you get the right testing, the right labs, so that you can do this the right way. And then any peptide that my providers prescribe, these all come through 503A or 503B licensed compounding pharmacies. I'm Regan Archibald. I'll see you on the next video.